All right, here we are. It's time to rock. I'm excited. Well, first of all, you've made videos, and when a lot of people look at you, they probably may not know that on the surface that you take time to make videos. And what inspired you to create your channel that has gotten thousands of views on Instagram, YouTube, and etc.?
So yeah, you know the name Big Chubbs, right? Funny name, but let's take a look at the second word, Chubbs. What does that mean? And that's just something I struggled with growing up. Right? Being bigger than everybody else. Growing up, I was always ridiculed for not being the average person, not being the average size. Oh, because I'm bigger than you, I must be worth less. Because I'm not the same as an average person. I'm here to tell you that it's okay to be different. And as far as my channel goes, I made the video. Over time, I started to accept who I was. It's okay to be bigger than everybody else, and rather than ridicule myself for it, embrace it. Right? I use it to change the world, hopefully impact people's lives. And you know, when I made that video, a lot of people didn't think I made it. They all thought I got help from someone or some outside source that I didn't make it.
That's interesting though, because I think sometimes that when people look at you, maybe all they see is, a football player. That's all you do, that's all there is to you. And how did that make you feel when some comments that you told me people made, oh, you didn't make that video, did you? Or, oh, you made that video, but somebody helped you edit. How did that make you feel when people assume that about you?
And it's normal, right? Usually when you think football player, you just think, he must not perform well in the classroom. Or, oh, he plays football, he's always, brown over brain, right? And at the time, it gets hurtful sometimes when this is a constant thing. That, oh, because you play football, you are only limited to this. Or because you're a part of band, you're only do this, X, Y, Z, right? So when I made that video, it was almost as if I'm telling you, hey, I'm more than what you see on the outside. I'm not just a football player. I'm capable of doing this. And because I'm a football player, that doesn't make me any less capable of doing the same things that you can. And a lot of people, when they were talking to me, they didn't know I was in the jazz band here. So shout out to the jazz team. I love jazz, right? And I'm also a gamer. I love games. And shout out to our esports team that we have here. They're awesome. And with these videos, I do a lot of these different things, but a lot of people didn't know that unless you took the time to sit down and actually have a conversation with me. It was just on the surface.
Conversations. And again, you talked about early on, especially, that there was a time in your life where it was just very difficult for you to accept who you were, who you are. And I think no matter how old you get, how young you are, that there are going to be moments, no matter how confident you may be in society and culture, there's going to be moments where accepting who you are is difficult. And what was the beginning steps where you began to accept, look, this is who I am? How did that process begin? Walk us through that.
So my first process was just realizing that I'm imperfect, right? No matter what I do, I'm still going to be Marcus. And like in the video said, I used to be almost 400 pounds, right? But now I'm down to 330, so that's like 50 pounds. But even then, appreciate you, but even then, with that weight loss, I didn't change. I'm still Marcus. I'm still 6'4". I'm still this big dude. And I feel like with that mindset, no matter how much weight I continue to lose, or how I continue to change my appearance to fit in other groups on campus, I'm still gonna be me. And that's something I had to accept. And with that, I always compared myself to others and what I didn't have. Oh, because he has this and I don't, I'm worth less. Oh, I don't have the newest shoes. Oh, I didn't get that good of a grade. I don't drive this nice of a car. That I'm worth less. I'm not worth as much as you. And that's something that I had to really shift my mindset to, because when God created me, he didn't create me to be like everyone else. He created me to be me. And that's something that I started to accept, in my process going on.
Yeah, comparison is a deep topic, and I think all of us do it at times. And I think it's really important that we're able to identify, as we're just being self-reflective, what brings me value and what brings me worth. Or maybe another way to put that is what makes me feel valuable and what makes me feel like I'm worth a lot. And at that time, when you were struggling, and we all still struggle, we all know that, but in those moments where you're like, oh man, I don't feel like I'm having worth, I don't feel like I'm having value, where were you receiving worth and value from?
So a lot of that came from my friends, my peers, right here on campus. It could be outside of campus, it could be with my coach, my trainer. And, just having that support group telling me that, hey, regardless of what you do, I still love you for who you are. And regardless if you fail, if you struggle, if you succeed, I'm gonna still love you just the same. And that's something that I really relied on. And when I was talking to you, when I was venting to you about how I felt in my struggles, and I told you how I always needed that approval from others to feel accepted, you gave me this great quote. You were telling me that if you live by others' approval, you will die by their criticism. And I'll tell you, that changed my life, because usually I used to do that, walking up on the hill, because I wasn't as skinny, right? I wasn't as valuable. And when you told me that quote, it really changed my life. Knowing that because I'm big, I should be grateful for it. Because now, I'm good in the sport. I love football, right? And then because I have a passion to, help people realize their self-worth, I made the video, and then, a lot of people knew that I started striving to be here for chapel since September. And here I am now, thanks to everybody's support, which I appreciate y'all, by the way. But, so just having a support group from my peers is really something that I rely on.
That's powerful, very practical. And I think that one thing I just want to make very clear to everyone is that there will be moments on this journey in life where you will feel that you're not enough. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I have to believe that there's maybe some people here today, students here today, where maybe that's how you feel. You're wondering if you measure up. And I believe that what we do when we're feeling that way is really, really important. Because what continues to lead to anxiety, depression, fear, and pain is when we just bottle that up. And Marcus, I would love to just hear practically, when you have those moments where you're feeling insecure, when you're lacking confidence, when you're feeling like you're enough, what do you do that helps you?
So one thing I did was I had a conversation. I go to the person that I love, I feel safe with, and I had a conversation with them. And I'll give you an example, right? So over the summer, it was COVID, horrible. You didn't know if you were gonna have a season or not for all sports, practically. So I went to San Jose State and I did a football camp there. And it was awesome. It was a lineman camp, so they recruited linemen. I did all the drills, did all the, all the steps, ABC, XYZ, and I did it. And I had the one-on-ones, we did the one-on-ones, it was great. But at the end, the coach pulled me to the side because I felt he thought I did exceptionally well. He said, Marcus, I think you have a chance. But simply because you're too heavy, I don't think you'll be able to have a chance here specifically at San Jose State. So at the time, it made me feel like, well, if I had these skills, these talents, but you didn't have faith in me because of my weight, that really was a kicker. Like, this takes me back to when I was a child, So, and then what I did was, after feeling I didn't measure up, I called my coach. So I called him and I told him, hey, I didn't end up getting that offer I wanted from college. And not even 2 hours later, they offered it to the guy who was below me. They gave him that spot because I didn't measure up simply because I was too heavy. So, and what he did was he told Marcus, he said, Marcus, thank you for calling me. And what he did was he didn't try to fix the problem, rather he just listened. And that was really helpful in that moment. He didn't say, Marcus, you should do this, ABC. He said, he just listened and he just thanked me. So that's what I would do. Just have a conversation with someone you love. Feel safe.
That's so practical, and I would even go further and say that's powerful. I know that that's really helped me in my own life as well. And I wonder though if there may be some people here today where they're like, I don't have that safe place. I don't have an individual that I can go to who can speak into my own life. And what I would love you to do, Marcus, right now is I would love you to be that coach for maybe some of our students, our juniors and seniors that are here today, because once again, I'm certain that there's some of us in here that are struggling with worth and value, wondering, do we measure up to the expectations that society, culture, family, academics, athletics, arts has put on us? Sometimes we're being crippled by the pressures of life. And sometimes we need somebody to step in and say, hey, this is who you are. And so for someone who's in here who's not feeling like they're enough, what would you say to that individual? What would Marcus say?
Well, that's cool. As a matter of fact, it's on my shirt right here. Upside down. So if you want the first thing it says on the shirt, it says, you are loved just the way you are, right? And then God loves you for you and not who you aspire to be. A lot of us, when someone asks us who are us, we like to tell them our achievements first and what we do. And I'm here to tell you that that's not who you are. You are not defined by what you do or what you succeed in or what you're good at. And on the bottom, it says Jeremiah 29:11. For God knows the plans he has for you, plans to prosper, right? And I really feel like at the time when I felt like I personally didn't measure up, I just needed someone to tell me that you are perfect just the way you are, regardless, even if you were heavy at the time. I still love you regardless of what size you are, what shape you are, what you do, what you don't do. And you know, we as a student, we have all these expectations to meet. I must have perfect grades. I must get an A on this test. I must write a perfect essay. But even if you don't get into that college you applied for, or even if you don't pass that test, or even if you didn't get the grade you wanted, God still loves you regardless of what you do. And that's something that's really powerful, and that's something that helped me as Chase.
And you mentioned something when we were talking. I'd love you to speak on it a little bit. You talked about the difference between business partners and friends. That sometimes we have a lot more business partners than we do friends. Would you break down some of those differences and how you believe friendship supersedes business and transactions? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. So having a conversation is probably something really powerful, because I feel like in my life I used to have a lot of business partners. And what I mean by that is people who would come to me who always needed something. They would say, hey Marcus, can you send this homework assignment? Or hey Marcus, can you help me with this? Can you do this for me? Can you do this with me? Can you? But they never really had a conversation to say, hey Marcus, what's going on in your life? How are you feeling? What's your struggles? How are you doing today? And I feel like that doesn't have to be just centered on me, but everyone in this room. A lot of us ask each other what we need, but not how are we doing. And we need to have that conversation. Because as a student, we sometimes, even myself included, sometimes don't feel like I have the authority to speak on this issue because I'm simply just a football player. But I'm more than that. And I'm here to tell all of you that you are more than that too. So that's what I'd summarize on that.
That's great. Well, Mr. Rykout, who's actually right up here, I gave him a hashtag. I was like, your hashtag for life is it's all about love. And he talks about this idea of a funnel that's pretty brilliant, and he believes that there's a funnel that God pours into us, and that he gets the opportunity to take that love that he's given and give it to others. And we both love him a lot. And I think that at the end of the day, when I think about love, and when I think about the love of God, I really do believe that he doesn't force us into change, but he loves us into change. And Marcus, I would just love to know from your perspective, how has God's love influenced you? How has the love of God influenced Marcus Phelan?
God's love for me lets me know that God loves me for me and not who I aspire to be, right? I have these dreams of one day becoming an NFL player, right? Playing on that NFL field. Right? Or I have a dream of getting that job that pays 6 figures, living on a nice house in the hills in a mansion. But knowing that if that part of my life never comes true, if I don't ever get that NFL job contract, if I don't ever get that 6-figure job, I'm still loved by God either way. And you know, even today in our school, right? Just to give it a brief example, as we look in our gym, you see all these banners talking about our CCS championship for girls soccer, or for girls water polo, or for football, or for volleyball. So, but that doesn't define Valley Christian. That doesn't define us. Because titles honor us and we do not honor them. People ask, did people ask you, who are you? Oh, I'm so-and-so, I do this, I work at this, but that's not you. Those are a part of you. Because God loves Chase Wiggins, not Pastor Chase. God loves Mike Machado, not Mike Machado, Dean of Students. God loves Mr. Lodewhite, not Principal Mr. Lodewhite. You see my point? And this needs to be told by everybody, because at some point in the time, this happens to me a lot, that sometimes when I'll tell my friends, when we say bye, dad, love, after practice, bye, I'll sometimes say I love you. And they'll look at me weird, like, what do you mean you love me? What do you mean you love me? And I'm like, that's not the kind of love I'm talking about. Because, you tell I love you to your dad, to your mom, you say I love you to your brother or your sister. So what difference does it make if you tell it to your best friend or to your teammate? It's no different. Because, at some point in time, a lot of us don't receive that much love that we struggle to give it. And when people can't cope trying to feel where they don't fit in, they think the best option is to just commit suicide because they think the world is best without them. So with me, my message is to spread love. Realize that you are loved for who you are, not what you did. Just because you play football or just because you play softball, that doesn't make you you. You are loved by me and by the Lord love, because He didn't make one mistake creating you, and I mean that. I mean, I may be big, right? But He still loves me for me. He still loves me regardless of what sport I play or what award I get. But those don't matter because they still love me for me. So that's what I would tell a student, Pastor Chase.
It's powerful. You know, it's interesting that for me, man, I still have moments at 30, and I'm sure I will when I'm 50, where I wonder the same thing. God, am I enough? And you spoke to something that I think is imperative for every single one of us in this space, and that's the fact that we can value each other through our words. That your words actually matter, that what you say to a student, what you say to people actually carries more weight than you know. We can spread this love, and we can spread this positivity to each and every single person, regardless of their belief systems, regardless of their current struggle, regardless of their family dynamic, their context, the way that they look, their passions, their talents, and their gifts. We can spread this love. So I'd like to do something right now. If you don't mind, I would like to just give you a moment to reflect. Can we just bow our heads and just close our eyes just for a moment?